Senator Toomey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, thanks for being with us. Just briefly, I wanted to follow up on the discussion that we had in the anteroom earlier about the money market funds. And I just want to strongly urge you to reconsider the position that the SEC needs to adopt a new round of regulations now for several reasons. First, I am not aware, we certainly have not seen the evidence that the new wave of regulations that was already imposed in 2010 is somehow inadequate. And we have seen that this industry is now on a stronger footing and got through some very difficult times last summer without a single hitch, suggesting, in fact, that they're in pretty good shape. Second point I would make is this notion that I see repeated often, that they're somehow very susceptible to runs, is quite ironic to me, given that over the 40-year history of hundreds and hundreds of funds through all kinds of extraordinary historical moments, there haven't been runs. So to suggest that we need this new regulation, new wave of regulation, some of the proposals of which I'm concerned would destroy the product. I mean, a capital requirement I don't think achieves its stated objective. I think it's unaffordable. Withholding requirements I think badly damage the product. So I'd like to just urge you to reconsider this. I think this is the wrong way to go. The questions I'd like to get to, if I could, is on LIBOR. First of all, there has been some suggestion that some of the British regulators may have known and in fact may have condoned or even encouraged some misreporting during the financial crisis for fear that otherwise a perception of risk at these banks might cause problems. So I think I know the answer, but just for the record, did you or any other regulators that you're aware of ever actually condone or encourage misreporting of LIBOR?
Absolutely not.
Okay, that's what I thought. Here's what I don't understand, and that is how you were aware of this in early 2008, and for the last 4 years, you never used the bully pulpit that you had to, A, warn the American people. All right, so there's literally hundreds of municipalities across Pennsylvania that were engaging in interest rate swaps where they're paying a fixed rate, typically, and receiving LIBOR payments. And we know, and you knew, that those LIBOR payments may not be the correct payments. In fact, might very well be less than what they ought to be getting. These municipalities didn't know that, and they should have. And the second thing, and then I'll let you answer, but the second thing is, why did you not use the enormous influence that you have had, both at the Fed and at Treasury, to persuade the financial institutions to adopt a different mechanism that would not be subject to this kind of manipulation when there are other alternatives available?
On your first question, again, I did what I thought was the most effective way to get to the heart of this. In general, you're right. There are some problems that you can address by talking about them, but generally, I'm of the view that it's better to act on these things, and that's what we tried to do. Now, these concerns that you refer to, as you know, were in the public domain at that time. The Wall Street Journal, among others, did a very good job of reporting these concerns. And the vulnerability that we were worried about was there for people to see. Now, in this period between that time, the spring of '08, when we acted, and when the CFTC announced its settlement earlier this month, they were involved, to their credit, in a far-reaching, complicated, difficult investigation, which ultimately uncovered the damage you referred to. And again, they ultimately involved the SEC and justice in that context, fully appropriate, I'm sure, in this context, and that process took some time. But in the interim, the British did do some things to try to reform the way the rate was structured. I don't think those reforms went far enough. But our system has to work this way, which is you have to combine reforms to the underlying problem, which we set in motion, with enforcement action, with consequences. And that's exactly what happened in this context.
Okay, I am not at all suggesting that we shouldn't have had enforcement. I think we should have. Absolutely. My concern is that knowing that this rate did not have integrity, you nevertheless stood by while thousands of transactions were being executed, interest rate swaps, loans, all kinds of agreements, And it seems to me you could have used the enormous persuasive power that the Secretary of the Treasury has to encourage and, in fact, persuade the financial institutions to fix this or start using an alternative mechanism.
Well, that's exactly exactly the objective of the actions I took at that early stage in the process. I do think it's important to recognize that the market began some time ago, because the market was broadly aware of these concerns. Both investors, borrowers, and lenders were aware of these concerns. Has started to evolve towards other alternatives, and that's happening. And that was driven by the recognition that their interests might be better served. Again, I want to just caution, though, that it's important to take some time to carefully examine what was the impact of the behavior on those rates. I don't think we know with confidence now the direction of the impact or the magnitude of the impact, but that's a very important issue and critical to restoring trust and confidence in the system, and I think the relevant authorities are doing a careful job now of looking through that.
My time has expired. I'll just close by saying I understand that we don't yet know exactly the direction or magnitude of the cost, but we know that this was a process that lacked integrity, and I would suggest that some of the transactions that were entered into and subsequently resulted in significant losses might never have been entered into in the first place had the participants understood the lack of integrity in this rate-setting process.
Well, I think that's one reason why it was so important that we did what we did, which is to try to set in motion reforms, not just reforms to the process, but make sure that the authorities responsible for abuse and manipulation had the ability to act on those concerns.